Welcome to That's a Word with Marcia and Gino. I'm Gino Morrow,
And I'm Marcia Williams Cromer.
and we begin each conversation with intention, one word at a time. Let's get into it, Marcia. Speak your word, sister.
Hey, Gino, how's it going?
Good, good. As always, great to see you. Glad to be with you here in this space and talking about things that we
Yeah.
love, which are words.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I've got a good one for you today. My word is atavistic. I will spell it Atavistic. It and the part of speech is adjective. The definition is relating to an inherited trait that reappears in an individual after being absent from a lineage for several generations. More broadly, it describes anything that is a throwback to an earlier form of life or way of thinking, a
Mm,
feeling, a behavior, a style, or even a fear rooted in ancient instincts. And for just a little bit of background, in biology, an atavism is a modification of a biological trait whereby an ancestral genetic characteristic reappears after having been lost through evolutionary change in previous generations. The concept also entered criminology and psychology. In the 19th century, criminologist Caesar Lombroso attempted to identify physical characteristics he labeled as atavistic or throwback traits that he believed determined primitive criminal behavior, though his theories have long since been abandoned by the scientific community. And the etymology of the word originates from Latin atavus, meaning ancestor, derived from at the word avus, meaning grandfather. The noun form atavism entered English via French atavisme, with its first known use recorded in 1833. I'm going to just share some samples
yeah, yeah.
and how to use it in a sentence. There was an atavistic thrill in gathering around the open fire, as if something deep in human memory recognized the flames.
Mhm.
Love that.
That was
Love
poetry.
that.
Hmm.
And I think about the times that maybe I've gone camping and, hiking or whatever, and we end up with a fire. And it is kind of a throwback where you feel almost like reconnected to your past in a way. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I also have another example. My family on my mom's side, they're from East Texas.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I noticed, East Texas, I grew up in, small town in Texas as well, but East Texas was still just a little more rural. And some of the belief systems were even surprising to me when I was a child. One in particular was how if it rained or there was a thunderstorm, we had to turn off all the TVs. You couldn't sew, you
Uh-huh.
couldn't use a needle. They had like all these kind of little superstitions that, you know, I respected because these were my family and elders. So, they said turn off the TV, we did.
Yeah.
The other thing was when someone died, they would cover the mirrors with
Hmm.
like a black cloth.
Hmm.
And I just found it to be fascinating because we didn't do that at home. I had never seen that before, and as I got older and was around these people, my mom's fam, I would just pick up on some of those atavistic tendencies, let us say.
Mm. Mm. So was the mirror one of those atavistic tendencies that you picked up, or what were some of the tendencies that you picked up
So
specifically?
yeah, just kind of superstitious type patterns that while the rest of the world was not participating in that any longer,
Mhm.
at the same age in life, I'm watching, a part of my family tree still upholding those rituals, if you will. So I'd ask, why are they doing that? And obviously, it's you're covering the mirror because you're not looking at your own image. And
Mhm.
somehow the idea that the spirit world, and your image was going to be aligned some kind of way. It was really weird, interesting stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Man, when you gave an example from, I think from your research, from the findings and the definition, and it mentioned like the fire, how the fire had, I'm paraphrasing, but like
Hmm. I'll hold on. I'll read it. There was an atavistic thrill in gathering around the open fire, as if something deep in human memory recognized the flames. So, as we've evolved over time, how important fire was to just being able to live, creating a fire so that you could, cook your food or whatever. And this is all happening outside. These are not things that we typically do in this time in the world and in our lives. But when you're there and you're around that fire, you do get kind of that channeling back to it. You feel like you've
yeah.
experienced it before, even if it's your first time. Yeah.
Um, First of all, that was so poetic the way that was written. That I could appreciate the sheer poetry of the way that it was articulated. But the other thing it reminded me of is some things that happened, like when I was young and I would stay at we would all stay at my grandmother and grandfather's house. When the thunderstorms came through, and this was in Buffalo, New York, when the
Mhm.
thunderstorms would come through, we would sit on the porch as a family and watch the thunderstorm. And I didn't realize that that was unusual to people until like I was with my wife, and like I like to sit outside when, like, it's a natural thing for me now. Like, it happened when I was little.
I
My grandma,
know. I know. And,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, no. I'm just going to say, I love that as well. It is something about the rain. It is
Yeah.
just spiritual to me.
Yeah, yeah, it is, but it also, for me, I guess it reminded me of that whole fire thing, where it might have drum up something more primal in nature, whereas like water could have often symbolized replenishment and nurturing in a time like when fire was primal to humans. Like water was also primal. It meant survival in many ways. And maybe that's something that is atavistic. Is that the word, atavistic?
Atavistic, yeah, yeah. And just
Yeah.
think about the times where people were hunter gatherers and they basically rolled up their tents and moved to another location when food became scarce wherever they were parked. And to your point, they always had to find a stopping place that included water, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, definitely. And as you were talking about the rain, even today, it's almost like I like being out and doing things, but it's something about rain that gives me permission to be quiet, to just, and I don't feel like it's required for me to be outside. And who knows, maybe on some level, that is a throwback or that is atavistic to my upbringing and seeing how people responded during the times when it was raining. How about that? I
I
just thought
love
about it.
it.
Yeah.
So I spend my Saturdays. I usually I try and acknowledge the Sabbath, and pay my and just worship. Um, but my way, I don't know. For some people, may be unusual. I go to the lake and I sit and I just be. And yesterday was one of them days where, like, it was a nice overcast. It was mid 80s weather. It was a breeze that just made it feel heavenly. And
Nice,
just
nice.
sit there on the shore and listen to the water, in Lake Louisville, which ain't it's not like the grandest of bodies of waters, but it's pretty big. Um,
Right.
and just to be able to sit there, and it's to your point, it gave me permission to be centered and quiet and peaceful. No one else around. At times I'll get on my phone, but for the most part, it was just quiet silence, phone put away, just listening to the water and feeling the sun and feeling the breeze. And I don't know how much closer to God you can get in life.
Hey, and I'm telling you, we don't even think about it because we're in like this fast-paced world that we live in. And when something like, a weather event gives me permission from the universe to just be still. I don't feel like I need to be solving any problems. I can shut the brain down a little bit and really just kind of get into perspective, or introspective. And I love that. I love those times that the world will give me that permission. Otherwise, I feel like I need to be out and moving and creating and pushing things. And even if it's raining outside and I'm at home, I could still be creating. I could still be writing. I choose not to. I just want to take it all in. And I never really thought about that as being something that was a throwback to a behavior that I inherited, as a human being throughout time. It's just been something that feels very comfortable, very familiar even. And when I see the forecast on a Saturday and it says it's raining, I start planning to just be
Relax.
at peace. Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
I totally embrace it.
The only time I relax at home, like if I see the sunshine, I feel like I gotta get outside and I gotta be in motion. When I see the rain, it's like I can go and lay on the couch today. I probably can throw on a movie that I won't watch. I'll fall asleep and give my body some peace. But yeah, I hear you. That point makes sense to me. I want to also throw in there, unless you got a point, and feel free to.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that so? I started thinking of the spiritual ways in which I felt or experienced a throwback to something that was generations ago. But I also was thinking of like physical or maybe, material, physical, I would say, because that has more to do with the personal or the self than material. But like on the physical side of things, like maybe a throwback is a talent or a gift that you possess that you haven't seen in your family lineage. Like I'm an artist, and I there's creativity in my family. You can see it in all my siblings, my mother and my father. You can see elements of creativity come out in some form in their life. My mother was a dancer. She liked to write poetry. My father was a singer. And my brother, very talented craftsman and carpenter. My sister, she loves to interior decorate. I think I got that as well, but I'm the only one who is a visual artist, and I think I'm probably the only one who made a career out of my creativity. Now I'm not boosting or bragging on myself.
No, I get it. Sure.
But I wonder like if that's epigenetic in the sense that it comes from some part of my genetic lineage that was forgotten or untapped into for a few generations. And so I think of the physical aspects of atavism or of being atavistic.
Atavistic, yep.
Yes.
And to your point, I think that's exactly what it's saying. There are traits that we have that may not materialize for generations over time. And for you don't know what your great grandfather's, superpower was, or his creativity skills or any of that. But the fact that it is there, I will say, just as an example, in my family, there has been a love for horses throughout the times. And it amazes me how maybe it was my grandfather that loved horses. It skipped a generation with my mom's brothers. They thought horses were cool, but not in their spirit love. You know what I mean? And then my cousin, which would be my grandfather's, great grandson, was like a world-renowned calf roper. You
Mm,
know, he was into horses and making a living at it.
yeah.
So again, you know, kind of a throwback that was atavistic to his great grandfather.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yes.
That is my word, Gino, atavistic.
Okay. Atavistic. And one more time.
And you know what I'm gonna ask? You know what I'm gonna ask you? Speak your word, brother.
All right. Um, so over the last few episodes, we've been digging through some heavy words, and so 2 episodes ago, my word was wicked, and I alluded to some synonyms being facinerous, iniquitous, metaphistophelian, words that describe wickedness that's been done to our people or people in general. But the last episode, I tried to lighten it up a little bit, came back with the word honor, and we talked through that, had a good conversation. Today's word is different. It's also on the light side, and I would consider it even beautiful. A word that represents noble, and that word is magnanimous. So the
Nice.
word magnanimous is an adjective, and it's from the Latin magnus, which means great, and animus, which is soul or spirit. So great soul. It means generous, forgiving, noble in spirit, especially towards someone who has less power than you, especially toward a rival, which I thought was interesting because I was all good until I got to that part, and I was like, okay, let me think about this. But um,
And what does that mean toward arrival?
so to be noble in spirit or forgiving to someone who's less
Hmm.
powerful or a
Hmm.
rival. So a rival, of course, will probably have done something to betray you or have done something to wrong you. And being magnanimous in this case, I
Understood. Got it. Got it. Got it. And me with my silly self, I thought you were saying arrival, like
oh
to arrive.
I arrived.
But, and how does that work? Rival, Marcia. Come on.
Wait, one word at a time.
Okay. I love it.
So the reason why I chose this word was because I had never. Okay, so I know this brother named Daryl. This is actually his story. I know this brother named Daryl, and I've known Daryl for probably, I'm gonna say, just almost at 2 decades now.
Okay.
When I lived in Kansas City, and I was married to my children's mother at that time, uh, we were in real estate. I was primarily in real estate. She was a supporter in my endeavors in real estate. And I met this brother named Daryl, who was also in real estate. And I remember the first time I met him, I was with a bike crew. I wasn't a part of the bike crew, but every Sunday we ride our motorcycles. And it'd be different brothers each Sunday. And this brother Daryl happened to meet up with us on this one Sunday, and he was on his motorcycle. It was a motorcycle that I aspired to have. It was a Hayabusa 1200. I think at the time I was in a Yamaha R1, which was like 600, no, maybe 600 or 800 cc's. Anyway, motorcycle talk. Irrelevant.
Okay.
Irrelevant.
I had a brother. Come on.
Okay. But he had one of the nicer bikes, and then I remember this brother invited me to his home. And we didn't spend much time like when we rode motorcycles. I didn't have a lot of extensive conversations with him and everything. It's not something that like the motorcycle group really did. It was just like we met up at a gas station and we'd all go riding, and then we'd all part ways. And most of us probably, or at least I didn't have any extended relationship with any guys in that group, with exception of one or two people. But Daryl, when he learned that I was doing real estate, and that he was also doing real estate, or that I was interested in doing real estate, he was already into real estate. He invited me over to his house on some artistic work. some more creative work, because he was also, like a lot of younger brothers, an aspiring rap artist who was working on his own album. But I went to his house, and I just remember being, Marcia, I was blown away that this brother, we were about the same age, but he seemed to have it together.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed to be rooted in knowing what his purpose in life was. Um, he had a he drove a Hummer truck, and his Hummer truck matched his motorcycle.
No.
And,
Okay, okay,
and
okay.
all of it matched his like hair and skin tone. It was like this brother was like had his whole image and purpose together, and I was just like, I don't know what this brother is doing, and I don't feel quite comfortable in asking him. Not that I thought he was doing anything illegal, but I just didn't want to be prying into his personal business. His house was immaculate. It was beautiful. He had a beautiful young lady that he was dating who was there at the time when I visited. And I just remember, man, I got to get my stuff together.
Okay.
I got to get my stuff together. So Daryl, we remained in contact with each other, and he invited me into the recording studio when he was working on his album, because at the time I was a 5-time regional and national spoken word champion.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people knew me for being a spoken word artist, and he invited me into the studio because he wanted me to record on one of his tracks, one of my spoken word pieces. So we did that. It was fun. I designed a CD cover for him and everything. At the time, I used to design for Sony Universal. I used to design for UMG Music Group for Sony.
Right.
And so it was a natural thing for me to design his CD cover as a part of our business dealings with each other. And overall, I'm just saying, I'm sort of just giving you a backdrop of the impact of this brother Daryl. We didn't stay in contact over extended periods of time, but recently he reached out to me. He had a product that he was working on. It was merch, and he wanted me to buy, one of his hoodies that he was selling, and so I did. I purchased one of the hoodies. But I remember he called me, and I was like, man, it's good to speak to you. I haven't spoken to him in years. And he didn't say anything to me at that time. It wasn't until after I received my hoodie and I had noticed online that he had been posting messages about something that he was going through. Mm-hmm. And come to find out that this brother, he was experiencing stage 5 kidney failure. Ooh. Yeah, stage 5 kidney failure. Now, one point that I forgot to mention is the first time I ever heard the word magnanimous is because his name as an MC and even as a human being, he called himself TMD, the Magnanimous Daryl.
Okay.
And even on his CD cover, it was the Magnanimous Daryl. And I didn't think of, I was like, first of all, the word was too big for me to even understand what it meant. I didn't even care to look it up. It wasn't a part of my thought process at the time.
But before the love of words.
Before the love of words. It's the magnanimous existed through this gentleman whom it was the only person it's the only way I had ever been exposed to the word magnanimous. I might have heard it, but it never stuck until I heard him. And the reason why I wanted to, when I was thinking, like I was going through my word list today, and I couldn't figure it out until the last minute which word I wanted to do. I had a few words that I had in my list, and I was like, no, I want to do something. And I meditated, I prayed on it. I was like, okay, God, I want a word that's relevant to my experience and my purpose in my life in this moment in real time.
Absolutely, I love that.
And the words that I was looking at, they didn't address what was current for me. And then it dawned on me, Daryl is currently posting a GoFundMe looking for assistance from people. But what struck me about it was he's been posting a lot of videos since he posted the GoFundMe telling about his experience. He's in stage 5 kidney failure, not because he eats or consumes sweets, not because he couldn't manage his diet. This is a brother who eats 1 meal a day. Not because he's starving of nutrients. He eats sufficient calories per day within 1 meal. He does intermittent fasting daily.
Yep.
But he went to Whole Foods and got a salad 3 years ago, and the salad had a bacteria that gave him a disease that caused his kidneys to fail. So he's been fighting Whole Foods and Amazon, who I think now owns Whole Foods. For the last 3 years, they offered him $10,000 in gift cards to try and get rid of him. And the reason why I wanted to tell his story and focus on the word magnanimous is because when I listen to this brother's faith as he talks about his experience, even in stage 5 kidney failure, he speaks with a level of nobility and humility. And
Mm,
so the
mm.
reality of the word magnanimous became apparent to me. And it's only today that I even looked it up. I mean, I up until
Okay.
now even looked the word up, and it was only today that I looked the word up, and I was like, he embodies magnanimous. And all of this time, I've known the word through him, never looked it up, but as I
That's
look it up
crazy.
now, it definitely ties into who the spirit of this man is. And so I want to post that when we post this episode. I want to post the link to his GoFundMe for anyone who thinks
Absolutely.
this.
Oh
And
my God, that's amazing. I love that story, and the fact that we've talked about it before. People, you never know where you're meeting somebody, right?
right,
And the fact that this is a person who had basically everything he'd wanted. He'd worked for it. He'd been able to accumulate some things. Man, none of it matters if you're not healthy,
back.
and to get to that point in life where, what do? You maintain your lifestyle, you try to take care of your health. And because we live in a country where healthcare is for profit, it's just wrong. It's just messed up, man. Nobody should have to change their entire lifestyle because, of the cost of getting treatment.
And
And
you know
we
what's
do that.
scarier? Like that's scary enough, but to think that the foods that like you go to Whole
Oh,
Foods,
oh,
he got a kale salad.
no, no, yep, yep. I'm gonna
You
tell
know,
you, and we talk about it all the time. Our food is trash.
trash.
Our food is trash, and in the desire to make sure there's profitable food on the shelves, they don't care what's in it. They don't care how fast they have to get it out there, and the fact that half the time they're picking vegetables and fruits that are so far away that they pick it before it's actually even ripe
Right.
and ready. So it's aging basically while it's in transportation.
Mhm.
I, this is one of my pet peeves, and I've worked in healthcare for years, and what I see breaks my heart. It's just wrong, especially being able to travel to places where they have universal health care. And that is just a fundamental right of any human being is to have health care.
And to know, like, I mean, like, I appreciate the fact that traveling gives you access to healthier foods. Like, I know over there, they've banned most of the foods that we're given
Absolutely.
over here.
Absolutely. They won't even allow it to be sold. One of the things that I was reading about a while back, and it's something that it's been years, and it's something that I would buy regularly. And it's those little creamers that, you can, put in like different flavors and all of that. They
Yeah,
really don't offer that stuff, because of what's in it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Crazy, crazy.
it's the world we're living in. We got to remain vigilant. We have to remain. We have to tap into our. What's your word again?
Atavistic.
Yeah, we have to tap into our atavistic tendencies or genetics or whatever the but always remain aware. And I think it's kind of funny too how the word woke is like dog whistle for black or nigger or
Right, right,
because
exactly.
like what's wrong? Like you need to stay woke. You need to be conscious of what you're consuming, where you get it from. who you're around, what patterns are people exhibiting that are healthy or unhealthy. And so woke to me will always be positive, because the opposite is sleep. And what are you doing when you're sleeping? You're most vulnerable. The only protection you have in sleep is God.
Yep.
So remain woke in this hour. As I think of a lot of the words that we've used. Matter of fact, we're gonna have to put a list together.
I know, we got to do it. I love it.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about that before, the word woke and how it's been transformed into a negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I still use it. I use it for what it was intended to. And a lot of the words that we use differently than, white people, ends
Uh-huh.
up being twisted into something that has to be perceived as negativity. We know better.
Right.
And there's no reason for us not to use it in the way that it was originally intended.
Before I conclude on my word magnanimous, there is one thing that I want to add, which is this. It's a little concerning for me to exercise magnanimity, because it requires taking the high road. And that means you're going to have to put up with somebody's shit. That means somebody's gonna issue some shit, and you're gonna have to put up with it. And because being magnanimous is on some level requiring forgiveness, and that's a beautiful thing, because for you to be in a position, listen, when somebody's got their foot on my neck, I'm not about to forgive them. I'm
Mm,
not. When the pain is when I'm being placed in pain, somebody is victimizing me in some form or fashion. In the moment, it is impossible for me to be magnanimous, because self-preservation comes first. Then after self-preservation, I can focus on forgiving. but until I ensure that I am stable and safe, then I don't have the capacity to be magnanimous, which says to me, in order to be magnanimous, you got to go through some shit.
yeah, yeah, but and let me just add to that. I think that you know we've all gone through. As a Black woman, I've gone through some things that I feel I chose to take a magnanimous posture,
Mm-hmm.
but my experience is different from yours as a Black man,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So my level of actually feeling threatened is probably not as great as yours. Having said that, I can only speak to what I have experienced. And I feel personally at this point in my life, peace is what I'm seeking.
Right.
And I understand enough about where the infractures come from now
Yeah.
that you're not gonna get no rise out of me.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not reacting to that. Okay. No, 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 no. No, because my peace comes first. And
Right.
I will let you think you won and head right on down the street. I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And I agree with that. As it relates to levels of threat, a threat is for me, a threat is something that I am is an attack that I'm unfamiliar with.
Right, right,
That
right,
because anything that I've experienced already, it may pose a threat if it's unaddressed, but because I've experienced it, I already know how to deal with it.
right,
I've
right.
never experienced it, it's going to challenge me, and in that way, it might serve as a threat. So that's the only differentiator. Other than that, though, that yeah, 100% agree, and so that's my word today, and I know we have exceeded our
Oh,
time.
you're good. You're good. And I love that conversation. It's amazing. And I want to thank everyone who's watching this show. We appreciate you guys so, so much. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this show with your friends. The more people that look at it, the better our channel does. And we're able to keep bringing content that you guys love. We thank you so much. And we say peace.
And we say peace.